Shalom Aleichem and welcome. I want to discuss two interesting shilas that I mentioned in Choshen Mishpat Siman Shin Lamed Beis. One of them is mentioned in the Smeh in Siv Ches. He brings a Trumas Hadeshen. Trumas Hadeshen is Siman Shin Chaf Gimel, where over there's a shilah. Ruvain hires Shimon as a messenger. He says, I need things delivered, let's say from New York to New Jersey. And they negotiate a price. Now the story was over there that he was asking him to give him, let's say, Yud Dinrin $100. $100, you have to know, was more than the average going rate for that delivery service. But that's what he was willing to give him. Fine. And Ruvain went on to he gave it to the messenger the thing to deliver, and Shimon, before he left to do the job, Shimon couldn't find Ruvain, so he tells the people around him, you should know, I'm going to do the job, but I want you to know the $100 does not cover the traveling expenses. I still want him to pay the tolls, the gas, or whatever it is. Traveling expenses are not included in the payment. But he didn't tell this to Ruvain, he told this to just the person standing by. After he delivered it, he comes back, and Reuben doesn't want to give it. He says, okay, we negotiated $100. Here's the $100. I'm not going to give you the extra traveling expense. It wasn't part of the deal. And Reuben's claim was, Mister, why don't you see that I gave you $100? It's more than the going rate. Why did I give you more than the going rate? Because I meant to cover whatever expense. Here it is, hako bako mako. That's it. So the question is, does Shimon have right to demand the expenses or not? So the Trumas Hadeshen Paskins, Hadin im Ruvain. The halacha is Ruvain is right. He does not have to pay the traveling expenses. Now it's not because it wasn't negotiated. And he says the reason, the hadamim meidiyim. The amount of money that he paid shows what he meant. Why would a person pay much more than a regular service? Because he didn't want to nickel and dime him. So he says, I'm not interested in the details. I'm going to give you a lump sum. I'm sure that's going to cover everything. The fact that he gave him more money, the amount of money that you gave shows that it's all included. And the Smeh brings from the Trumas Hadeshen, he says, even though we don't usually use that as any proof, and this halacha comes up in many places. The Gemara in Baba Basra, the Gemara in Perek Mishnah Aleph in Baba Basra speaks about when you sell something, when you sell an animal, sometimes not the saddle, the thing that you put on the animal comes as part of it's usually part of the sale. Is there such a thing as usually? Or does the fact that how much you paid for the animal make a difference? Another shaila comes up when a person negotiates rent. They came up with a rent money, how much they would pay. Okay, so we decided it's going to cost you $1,000 a month rent. So the tenant gives and pays $12,000. We never negotiated clearly that I'm keeping you for a year. Why would the tenant pay $12,000? So there's a discussion. Does that automatically mean that he has the rights for the 12 months? Do damim moedim, does the amount of money that you give show what the deal originally was, or you can't bring any proof from the amount of money you gave? So not every time damim is moedim, but the Trumas Hadeshen says over here, we paskin that the fact that Reuven gave extra money, that shows that he meant to include even the traveling expense, because no person is going to give extra money. If you look in the Pischei Tshuva, he brings that the Tzasachoshen challenged this halacha. He says we have other places where we see that the amount of money that you gave doesn't prove anything. For example, we also learned that if you hire a worker, do you have to feed him lunch? Do you have to give him lunch? So the halacha is, if the minig is that everybody gets lunch, you have to give lunch, even if you're giving a better salary. So in other words, the fact that you're giving a better salary doesn't show that it's including the lunch money. It means that you're giving a better salary. And you still have to provide lunch. So we see that not always we say damim moidim. And he quotes that in the Sivas HaMishpat, says a shtickle hesber, he says that the reason why by the story of the Trumas Hadeshen, over there he didn't have to pay the extra expenses for the traveling expenses. And we did rely on the amount of money he gave, is because in this case it was unique. Why? Because usually when you hire workers and you pay them for the traveling expenses, at least in that place it was common, you pay them for the traveling expenses in advance. And the fact that he didn't get the money in advance, that alone broke the minhag, so therefore that was another reason he didn't have to pay the traveling expenses. I found that a very interesting halacha. And we always find, then we find another interesting story. In the beginning of Siman Shin Lamed Beis, the Erech Lechem brings two other similar situations like this. A person was in trouble, so he turns to his friend, he says, do me a favor, do whatever it takes to help me. Get me out of this trouble. I used the wrong words, do whatever it takes. I think that might be different. He turns to his friend, he says, I'm in trouble, financial trouble or whatever it is, help me. So the friend did whatever he could and he helped him. But then the friend comes to the person who asked, to his other friend who asked him, he says, listen, I need you to give me $1,000. Why do I need $1,000? Because I needed $1,000 to bribe somebody in the government to overlook your case, or to bribe somebody to get you out of your mess. And the question is, okay, that you're fine. Because that was part of the request. Do whatever it takes to get me out. But when he says $1,000, do we automatically trust him with the amount or not? And the halacha that Erech Lechem brings, if he makes a shvua how much he spent, whatever he says you have to give him, and he doesn't even have to say who he had to bribe, because that would be a sakana. So in other words, when you ask somebody to do you a favor, and whatever it takes, you have to trust him. Then he brings another story. Reuven told Shimon that I will intervene, I will help you in a certain business deal. I'm a close friend. I know you want this deal. I will do whatever it takes. I will do to help you out. And when it was getting towards the end, Reuven says, I can't finish off the deal unless you give me an X amount of money. I need some money. Originally, Reuven said, I'm going to do it for free. I have connections. I'll use my... But now Reuven says, I need some money. So Shimon gave him the money, whatever he needed. But Shimon also had some money that Reuven owed him. So Shimon says, a couple of months down the line, Shimon says, the money that I have, I'm not giving back to you. Why? Because you had an opportunity, you knew I was under pressure, and you knew I needed that deal done, and when you came to me and said, I need some extra money to negotiate the deal, I had no other choice. So I gave you the money by force. I didn't really want it. So my backup is, I'm going to keep of what I have of yours. So the din is Hadin im Reuven. He brings, the Erech Lechem brings, Reuven is right for asking for money, because as long as he told him in advance, I cannot anymore do things for free, I need to have some money to deal with, and Shimon gave it to him, Reuven doesn't have to give it back.